have a completely different understanding of science and what science means. And also, science traditionally was a branch of philosophy. This is the way the pre-modern world saw it, whether they were Muslim, Christian, or Jewish. The natural sciences are part of the philosophical tradition, and they emerge out of, the method is preceded by the metaphysics, so they emerge out of the metaphysics. So for instance, the Catholic Church outlawed the use of crossbows in their war because they were unethical. The Muslims, according to the book The History of Bombing by a linguist, I think is his name, he argues that the very first rules of engagement were actually articulated by Muslims. And they were ethical. You could not use poison arrows. I mean, this is in the books of fiqh. You know, in Mukhtasar Khalil, it says it is prohibited to use a poison arrow. You could not poison wells. You could not cut down fruit trees. These were ethical principles that emerged out of a metaphysical understanding about human beings and their dignity. You could not mutilate bodies. I mean, what greater mutilation than blowing somebody up? I mean, it was prohibited. Sharia prohibits the mutilation of bodies, and to mutilate your own body, which is created. It's a representative of God on earth. It's the caliph of God on earth. And so these are things that are really, I think, important for our religious communities to understand, which has been lost. It's arguable whether or not a deeply spiritual civilization could have created the car. And I think the car down the road is going to be seen as one of the worst inventions in human history. The number of people that are killed on a yearly basis all over, let alone animals. And I was once making an argument with a taxi driver in Abu Dhabi about how terrible cars were. And he started arguing with me, no, there's nothing wrong with cars. And right then he hit a cat. And it was just amazing because, you know, it's horrible when you hit an animal with a car. All these things, yeah, these are all metaphysical problems, and they're deeply rooted problems. So I think science, the thing is, we're not anti-science, but we have to understand what is the science that you're producing, and where does it come from, and what are the assumptions of that worldview that's producing that science. In Vietnam, they produced the neutron bomb, or the napalm, and so the Viet Cong would put lakes in their villages because the napalm, if you went into the water, it would stop the burning. So some scientist here decided to invent napalm that didn't stop burning with water. White phosphorus. Yeah, white phosphorus. I mean, Fallujah was called Operation Shake and Bake because they used white phosphorus to bake human beings. So what type of a civilization does things like that? I mean, you know, these fanatics chop off people's heads and they say, oh, they're so barbaric. And then we're dropping bombs. We just killed 200 civilians in Mosul yesterday. You know, so it's sanitized barbarism. That's all it is, because it's from 30,000 feet as opposed to chopping off the head, which is definitely barbaric. It's horrible to do that, especially the vast majority of people become completely innocent people. But we're not innocent. We're just much better at it. You know, it's like garbage. In the Muslim world, you go in, garbage is everywhere. But at least you know what the society's producing. In our culture, it's all hidden. We produce much more garbage. But they go into landfills, and there's a massive, in the middle of the ocean, there's this massive plastic, it's huge, it's bigger than the state of Texas. It's all garbage in the middle of the ocean. So this is our civilization, but, you know, so I'm just challenged this whole, this attitude that people have towards science and bowing before this idol of science, I think is one of the worst aspects of our culture.
Shaykh, you just said that it needs to happen in science for us to be able to engage with it, and how can we affect that? I mean, what needs to change? Is it more something deeper and fundamental in terms of its worldview that it's based on, or is it something more easier than that?
No, definitely. It goes back to what are the assumptions and what is the human being? What is our purpose? Consumerism, consumer society cannot continue, and it can't spread. The Chinese now all want to live like Americans, and we will need 3 Earths just to the natural resources necessary to supply the use. But the biosphere won't be able to sustain it anyway. I mean, the fish are going. We're already losing the fish in the ocean. Literally, the jellyfish are taking over, which is an amazing. I mean, God, I think, has just such a wonderful way of showing us who we are. Because, I've made an argument in environmentalism. It's not the cockroaches and rats that are disappearing. It's all these high animals. It's like eagles and falcons and tigers and lions and leopards, because those are qualities within us. All Aboriginal peoples they didn't name their children cucaracha, like a cockroach or something. They named their children things like Asad and Fahad, lion, and leopard and wolf and eagle. Because they were the majestic one. And even the bee, what a beautiful creature, and it's disappearing. We don't even see butterflies. I grew up in this area. People that grow up in this area know how many butterflies we used to have in this area in springtime. We don't see butterflies anymore. So these are all things that, you cannot keep going to Starbucks and just getting that thing and throwing it away and think you can do that forever. At a certain point, people have to say enough.
Well, go ahead. You've been